Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we have bad news today. Apparently, Washington Commanders' second round pick defensive tackle out of Alabama, Phidarian Mathis, is out for season. Ian Rappaport just tweeted it out, said Commanders defensive tackle Phidarian Mathis, knocked out yesterday with a knee injury, has a torn meniscus and is headed for season-ending surgery. Sources say the promising second rounder is expected to make a full recovery for the 2023 season. But man, we need him right now. We need him 2022. It sucks because, the two guys we brought in from Alabama, second round, Phidarian Mathis just got hurt, out for season, third round, the whole Brian Robinson situation, and he should be back pretty soon. There's reports that we should be optimistic about him returning week 5 when he's eligible to come off the NFI, the non-football injury list. But it's just crazy that we lost both of our Alabama picks in the way that we did. And most unfortunately, Phidarian Mathis again for the entire season. But of course, this is Rico of Street Scores. We got to look at everything as optimistic as possible. We got to look to see who are our options as far as replacing them currently on the team. Maybe some guys that were on the practice squad, some guys that didn't make our team, that didn't get picked up by other teams, and of course, veteran free agents that are also available as well. Because we're going to have to do something. As of right now, the only defensive tackles on our team, on our 53-man roster, are Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen as your starters, of course. And then it's Efe Obada and Daniel Wise, and that's it. That's literally it. And I guess you can technically consider James Smith-Williams another defensive tackle, but he's our starting defensive end right now in place of Chase Young. So we move him to backup defensive tackle, who's our starting defensive end. So we gotta figure something out. Definitely some moves that need to be made. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Friday for the broadcast podcast, and make sure you pull up every Sunday. I will be live streaming during every game. I'll have my post-game review video that's going to run 20-30 minutes every week, and then we're going to have the post-game live stream where I give my opinions, and I'll also open up the phone lines for y'all to call in and voice your opinions on everything that went down, positive and negative, win or loss. But without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so like I already said, Phidarian Mathis went down with a knee injury yesterday. It was like the second defensive drive too. It was like immediate, and it was crazy because in the very little time that he played yesterday, he made an impact. And even though he didn't technically record any concrete stats, he was far more impactful than that, than I saw. His ability to eat up double teams and to take on blockers and allow everybody else to play well and do their thing in the flash. I just felt like his unselfish play was going to elevate the play of this defense for sure overall. Because one thing about our defensive line is very talented, but they have a very selfish way of playing. They're not sticking to their gap responsibilities. They're allowing quarterbacks to either run around them or run in between them, to scramble and things like that. They're not being disciplined. Edge rushers are going too far back. Interior defensive linemen are moving too far horizontally. Even last year, as much as I loved Tim Settle and Mathis and how much we miss them right now with Phidarian Mathis getting hurt, all of those guys were kind of playing some team of me type of ball. And generally, all of our guys have been even Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. And so Phidarian Mathis was supposed to be that centerpiece, the guy that plays the most unselfish and allows everybody else to shine. And so it's definitely going to affect our team, the fact that we lost them. But I felt like the defensive line still played pretty well even after he got hurt. But they were supposed to play even better if he was out there. But there's no surprise that he is out for season. When you're carted off, that's typically what it means. You're going to miss at least a few weeks. People don't get carted off and come back the next week. That just doesn't happen. And then even in the press conference after the game, Ron Rivera did not sound very positive and very optimistic about his injury as well. So I already knew, man. So looking at it, like I already briefly mentioned in the intro, how are we going to replace Phidarian Mathis? As of right now, our only defensive tackles are Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, your clear-cut starters. Then there's an obvious gap, and then you get the Efe Obada and Daniel Wise, who both have flashed throughout the preseason and even moments in that game against the Jaguars. But we need a guy that can basically play the role that we were hoping Phidarian Mathis would. Now, Daniel Wise and Efe Obada provide some pass rush potential, and I feel like Phidarian Mathis potentially has that as well. But Phidarian Mathis's role, again, was the unselfish, eat up double teams type of role, and I don't really see Efe Obada or Daniel Wise doing that. And that's why I felt like Phidarian Mathis, even though he technically wasn't a starter, he was going to play almost near starting minutes potentially, because we're going to run 5 defensive linemen with him being the nose tackle. And out of all of these guys, I mean, maybe Daron Payne has some nose tackle ability to him, but really outside of Phidarian Mathis, we have no true other nose tackle options. So if we want to run 5 defensive linemen, Phidarian Mathis was huge for that. So whoever we bring in, whether it be from outside the team or somebody who was previously on the team when we had the 90-man roster, maybe was on the practice squad currently or just didn't make the team at all, they're more than likely going to have to be somebody that can do what Phidarian Mathis does. And that's why, again, he was such a unique player, because really nobody else on our roster, even the guys like Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, have the same play style as him. That's just going to basically just be the unselfish guy that eats up double teams. So it's going to be hard to replace that. I mean, granted, you could go out there and get a nice, pretty decent veteran option at defensive tackle, but are they going to be the double team eater that Phidarian Mathis was? Even if they are potentially better at rushing the passer and penetrating and things like that, again, Phidarian Mathis had a specific role for this team that would even thrust them out there with the starters more often than people probably thought. And let's go ahead and look at the free agents that are out there, like a Ndamukong Suh, or Brandon Williams, a Linval Joseph, a Vernon Butler, a Star Lotulelei, who I thought we would sign during free agency after Tim Settle and Matt Ioannidis left. We didn't sign any true veteran options out there, and then we ended up drafting Phidarian Mathis. So I wasn't surprised that we got Phidarian Mathis, because I thought Star Lotulelei would be the guy we would sign, and then when we didn't, it showed that we were going to draft a guy. But you also have Sheldon Richardson, Malik Jackson, Malcolm Brown, Gerald McCoy, T.Y. McGill. I mean, we're digging here. We're definitely digging. Not a lot of great options out there. I mean, maybe they want to go the bigger name, the Ndamukong Suh, but he's 35 years old. He also has an attitude problem that was, fairly under wraps when he was playing with the Buccaneers, but maybe that's a Tom Brady effect. Do we have somebody that can control the Ndamukong Suh? Maybe the Ron Rivera culture can. I don't know. But our options are not looking great out there as far as replacing Phidarian Mathis. And again, it's not even necessarily a specific talent level and how productive they can be. It's the specific role that I'm worried about. Again, a double team eater, a nose tackle more than anything else. And so, of course, out of guys that didn't make the 53-man roster, I mean, you have Tyler Clark. Do we move James Smith-Williams into like a defensive tackle role and then upgrade William Bradley King from the practice squad, and then he's like your edge rusher? But how would that work out depth chart wise? Because as of right now, again, James Smith-Williams is just starting defensive end. I guess Casey Toohill would step up and start at defensive end with James Smith-Williams trying to be somewhat of an interior defensive lineman. But again, with him being our starting edge rusher, you can tell he's not the biggest guy, and so he doesn't replace what Phidarian Mathis did for this team. And so I'm not really seeing any options. We're just gonna have to probably change up the scheme and the game plan. The whole 5 defensive linemen with a true nose tackle like a Phidarian Mathis plugging up the middle is probably no longer an option unless there's some veteran guy out there that I'm missing that could potentially fill that void. But as far as guys that were already on this team during the 90-man roster, during training camp and things like that, during the off season, there's nobody out there. I don't feel like Tyler Clark could do that. Again, Daniel Wise and Efe Obada, who are already on the team, I don't see them replacing that role in that way. Double team eater. David Bada, I love him, but I don't think he can do that as well. So I think we're just gonna do what we can to add more defensive line depth, but I don't even think we're gonna try to replace a Phidarian Mathis specific role again, which is my biggest problem with this. Again, it's not necessarily the fact that we're losing a productive defensive tackle. We're losing a guy that's pretty much the only guy on our roster that can do what he does. And again, he wasn't a starter, so it's not like, oh man, it's time to panic, the season is over. It's not like losing Jonathan Allen, but at the same time, we lost a guy with a specific role, and he's a rookie. This is his first NFL game action. He only played, like a quarter? So now, technically, next year will again be another rookie season for him. So who knows how much of a jump he'll make in his development. So it just sets everything back another year. I love his potential. I love his ability to eat up double teams and things like that. But there were still some areas of his game that he needed to improve on, and real game action was going to be the best way for him to develop. And so again, that's another thing that's put on hold for another year. So realistically, like I said, I don't think we're going to try to replace what he did. We're just going to add defensive line depth and switch up the scheme. We're just going to be out there with 4 defensive linemen probably all of the time now. I just don't see us really running 5 defensive linemen with our current situation. Maybe you could put Daron Payne in nose tackle, but we've seen that Phidarian Mathis, I mean, the reason that we drafted Phidarian Mathis, there's clear-cut evidence that Daron Payne doesn't excel in that role. You prefer him, if we have 5 defensive tackles, that he's one of the 3 techs opposite of Jonathan Allen, next to Montez Sweat, or hopefully soon Chase Young, but as of right now, James Smith-Williams, in between the nose tackle and the edge rusher. Putting Daron Payne in nose tackle is probably our best option right now, and replacing what a Phidarian Mathis was doing against double teams. But Daron Payne, first of all, the impact he had in that game against the Jaguars, he's out there playing for a contract. It's going to be hard to convince that guy to be the guy that eats up double teams and allows everybody else to shine when he's in a contract year. He's trying to get paid. It's going to be really hard for him not to be selfish, and that's the most selfless role on the defensive line right there what Phidarian Mathis was doing. So that's going to be really difficult, scheme wise, talent wise, and just mentally and chemistry wise, trying to convince Daron Payne to do what Phidarian Mathis was doing. So I just expect us to run way less 5 defensive linemen. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that Jaguars game to see how much we ran it anyway, even while Phidarian Mathis was healthy, but it was only like a quarter of sample size, so it's really hard to tell how much we truly wanted to do it. I thought heading into this regular season that we would run the 5 defensive linemen quite a bit, but Phidarian Mathis wasn't even healthy long enough for us to truly see it become anything amazing and turn into like a dominant force like I thought it would be. So it does kind of suck. Again, that's just a couple of pages in the playbook that Jack DeRio's pretty much just got to throw away until next year. Again, I still think our defensive line is going to be great, but this definitely hurts this defensive line overall. And again, if we're talking about a specific role, we just don't really have any true options to replace what a Phidarian Mathis was doing for this team. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything and potential replacements for Phidarian Mathis. Do you feel like it's time to hit the panic button? Do you feel like there's any hope that we can find a guy that can do what Phidarian Mathis was doing for us? I mean, what are your options? Did I miss anybody as far as veteran free agents? Do you feel differently about guys currently on the team that may be able to do what Phidarian Mathis does compared to how I feel about the situation? So of course, definitely get in the comment section and express your thoughts. And as always, man, please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. As always, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Catch y'all later, and I'm coming out with some film sessions from this game starting probably tonight, maybe starting tomorrow, but y'all will be getting film sessions on this game. We'll take a look at Jahan Dotson, probably look at Derek Forrest and all of that, so be on the lookout for all of that. Catch y'all later. I'm out.